Between 1999 and 2007, Tony Hawk games were being served up like burgers at a fast food chain, one right after the other, and rightfully so. The franchise was absolutely on fire. But after the first 4 Pro Skater games, after the Underground miniseries, before the later, less enticing installments, the Tony Hawk franchise had a few interesting years of content. Today we'll be discussing the first of those. Welcome to a complete retrospective and review of Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. Developed by Neversoft, published by Activision, originally released on October 18th, 2005 for the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox in North America and October 28th of that year in Europe, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland was the 7th entry released in the Tony Hawk's franchise. Only a month after initial release on the 6th generation, it would release on the Xbox 360 as one of 15 launch titles. The Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance versions were released as Tony Hawk's American Skateland, with the DS version actually being the first third-party Nintendo DS game to feature online support. It's also the first Tony Hawk game to feature Xbox Live support, as online experiences within the Tony Hawk franchise were previously limited to PS2 and PC. Now at its core, this game absolutely does feel like a Tony Hawk game.
Hey kid, I got a humdinger of a challenge for you.
Coming directly from the Underground sub-series, it feels different. Not in a bad way, just different. For one, the art direction is different, and as Brian Bright, senior producer on the game, said, character and art styles were modeled through mid-80s thrash punk inspiration. It definitely shows, too. The story begins with you playing as a guy from Kentucky who boards a bus to LA in order to escape his problematic past. While the customization is still here in all of its glory, it already feels a little bit limited because you can't play as a girl like you could in the Underground games. At least not in the story.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Yes, I'm a hugger. I like to think of it as a full body handshake.
Anyway, as Tony Hawk himself said, Neversoft would take the best elements from previous games and continue to add them into future installments moving forward. This, for the most part, is the case here, from big picture, the way the game is formatted, to smaller picture, the ability to walk around without your skateboard. American Wasteland didn't only include these elements, but they also expanded on some of them. Instead of just being able to roam around off of your board, you can run up walls and do flips. Free running in this game feels less clunky than previous installments, but not in a good way. I don't really know how to explain it. It's almost like your character is too responsive. Other new additions, like being able to Burt slide, stall on rails, do boned ollies, the entire physics-based BMX system, are welcome additions, although some would argue that they blowed up the control system. Regardless, American Wasteland does at least try to freshen things up. Burt slides are pretty inconsistent for me, and I don't really find myself using them a whole lot outside of missions that require them. Come to think of it, I don't really find myself using any of the new mechanics aside from running up walls outside of missions that would require them, but at least they tried. Rather than being played out over the course of several different levels that you have to load in and out of, American Wasteland has a gimmick in which the story is one big level that connects via small corridors that basically act as loading screens. This isn't an issue, and I might actually prefer it to how Tony Hawk games would classically have you load into the next level, but the marketing around it is, or was, a little bit sketchy. In its entirety, the story of American Wasteland takes place in Los Angeles, showcasing places like Hollywood, Beverly Hills, downtown, Santa Monica, an oil rig, and a casino. The story isn't just your typical amateur skater aspiring to go pro. Instead, this time around we arrive in Los Angeles where we get jumped by a group of locals. Here the player meets Mindy, sort of our guiding arrow throughout much of our adventure. Mindy is friends with a group of skaters who normally occupy a spot they call the Skate Ranch, but to get in we gotta prove ourselves to them.
Stick a slap to manual to wall plant.
At first, this ranch is a good template with nice bones, but a barren wasteland. From this point, the overarching objective of this game is to obtain pieces for the skate ranch and turn it into, in theory, the greatest skating location in video game history. And while there is a little bit more going on here, the plot sort of works because it's different. The player doesn't exist only to forward their own agenda. Instead, here we are building toward our newly found friend's aspiration of turning this ranch into a full-fledged skate park. You know, it would work even better if the game game wasn't so hands-on. Much of this story feels like a tutorial, and while learning new mechanics late in a game like Underground was a good thing because it kept the game fresh, learning new mechanics throughout a large portion of time in this game was the complete opposite. I feel like because of how much tutorial this game actually provides you, the story is over much sooner than you expect it to be. Something we really haven't seen, to this degree at least, is the interaction with shops and the money system. Previously, there was no interacting with shops. You do everything that you need to do in regard to customization through menus. American Wasteland provides skate shops, tattoo shops, clothing shops, and barber shops, all of which can be separately accessed, enabling customization in a little bit more of a realistic yet tedious fashion. If you need to earn some money for any of these activities or to advance the story, you either go to this guy who's essentially your employer,
Yo, what up, skate rat? I got challenges to make your knees shake.
or help this guy tag some stuff. There are points in the story where you need to purchase some customization options to advance the story, and if you don't have the funds for it, either of these two are going to be how you'll be making your money. Neversoft must have not seen the usefulness in the driving mechanic, as that's been scrapped altogether here. Instead, we're introduced to that physics-based BMX system with bikes sprawled all across the map for players to interact with. This is a mechanic that I avoided until I was forced to not avoid it because it comes up in the story, and then I ended up actually enjoying it. Just remember, it's still Tony Hawk after all. You aren't playing some incredibly game-changing BMX alternative, but it is a cool little breakaway from the traditional gameplay. Rick Thorne, professional BMX rider, accompanies the addition of BMX with a pretty useful tutorial on the system. If you don't feel like skating or biking to your destination, you can head over to a bus, which is probably closer, where you can just select your destination and like magic, you're taken there. That's the game's fast travel mechanic and something you'll probably end up using a good handful of times. It's not as useful as having a map, but it's more useful than having nothing. In addition to the story, you can hop into classic mode where you'll get that, well, classic Tony Hawk experience. 2 minutes on the timer, a list of challenges to complete, and a handful of levels as well. Minneapolis, Santa Cruz, the Mall, Chicago, Kyoto, and the Ruins, which is a post-apocalyptic rendition of LA. The soundtrack, something that I had muted for the entirety of my playthrough, features 64 songs in total, and it's a solid mix of original songs as well as punk-based bands covering songs from classic punk groups. On the wide range, though, we have indie rock, punk rock, electro-based songs, as well as hip-hop. Music is subjective. This isn't my favorite of the Tony Hawk soundtracks, but it might be yours, and that's perfectly fine. All in all, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland is a fairly solid, innovative addition to the franchise. If I were comparing it to the Underground games, I'd say American Wasteland's story starts out slower and then maintains that pace with its slew of tutorial-style missions. There are definitely missions that are fun and stand out. Overall, the story itself is fun and unique, but it's held back. The idea of creating this incredible end-all skate ranch with a new group of friends is exciting, and watching the ranch go from nothing to this massive skate park that feels alive is really cool. I just wish there was more good throughout, like fun original missions, and less of the bloated filler. The gameplay is fun. It's still early 2000s Tony Hawk after all. The art direction is fantastic, and I think it gives this game a sense of personality that other games in the franchise just do not have. I'd say the original characters throughout are a fun, memorable group. Overall, if you've never played American Wasteland, or if you've never experienced it at all, I hope you're able to at some point. Regardless of my criticism, it is certainly worth a playthrough. And if you have played it, how do you feel about American Wasteland? Is it one of your favorites in the franchise? Can't stand it? Let me know down in the comments. Interested in my thoughts on Tony Hawk's Underground? Click here. Thanks for watching.
How am I supposed to get to downtown with the metro closed?
I'm trying to get to downtown myself, but those workers have shut down the entrance. Tell you what, I can open up that entrance for us. I just need my bag of tricks.
What bag of tricks?
It's in my car, but the cops are giving me another parking ticket. I'll make you a deal. You distract the cops, and I'll get my bag and get you to downtown.